There's a pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with another Friday Reads. I have a little bit to say. I hope this is actually going to be shorter than usual because it wasn't a really exciting reading week, but it wasn't terrible. I finished 3 books. The first was Jonahs, Gourd by Zora Neale Hurston, and I really liked it. In the end, I didn't love it. I didn't think it was quite a 5-star read, but it was certainly a satisfyingly 4-star read. This was a buddy read with Doris of Aldi Books, Justin of Ghost Reader, Karen of Run Right Reads, and Chris of the Book Cougars podcast. And we all quite enjoyed it to varying degrees. I would only add to what I said. I was very enthusiastic after having first read the first few chapters last Friday, and I would just add to that the portrayal of the main character, John, who was a sexy, adorable guy who couldn't keep his hands to himself. He couldn't keep his hands off all the women he came in contact with. That was Zora's father. And I think that was the flaw in the novel, that it feels to me like she wrote the novel to try to understand her father, who couldn't stop cheating on her mother, and caused a huge rift in the family and pain, deep emotional pain, and the family dispersed after the mother died very young. It felt to me like she was trying to come to terms with that, and it just didn't work. I never really found John, the main character, to be a believable character from the way he started out to where he ended up, but I still thought the novel was really good. He just turned really dark, and I mean, I guess as we grow up, sometimes we lose parts of our personality that were much more in evidence when we were younger, so maybe it's my problem, but I just felt the characterization of the protagonist ended up being fairly weak in an otherwise very strong, memorable, well-written novel. I started and finished this short story, Come Rain or Come Shine by Kazuo Ishiguro. There will be a short discussion video between Doris of Aldi Books and I, posted on BookTube in the next day or so. But I'm happy to say this is the first thing I've ever read by this guy that I wholeheartedly, unreservedly loved. It's a wonderful short story. Now, if you have read a lot of his stuff, this isn't a new story. It was originally published in his short story collection from 2009, Nocturnes. But it's a wonderful story. I loved it. I think that maybe Ishiguro is one of those writers that's a better short story writer than he is a novelist. That's my theory at the moment. This was wonderful. I heard another short story of his narrated for, I think it was a Guardian podcast, and I loved it too, and I don't love any of his novels. I also finished Wallace Thurman's Harlem Renaissance classic, The Blacker the Berry, and I didn't like it. It has a lot of historical value, and there's probably writers that are of a completely different demographic than I that would find it a literarily satisfying work, but I was very disappointed literarily because it was a one-issue, one-note story, which was color consciousness within the African American community, and it was a very interesting issue to read about. But after the first 20 or so pages where the world was built, from that point on, I never really felt like I was reading a novel. I felt like I was reading a sociologist trying to write a novel. So it was like the main character, she's very dark-skinned and even discriminated against within her own family because of that, because the rest of the family is fairly light-skinned. And then for the rest of the novel, it's like, then she goes to this city and she meets this person, and this person doesn't like dark-skinned people. This African-American character doesn't like dark-skinned complexions, so there's a rift there. And then the next person, and she is more accepting of dark-skinned African-Americans. But it never got into anything else about any of these characters other than their prejudices or lack of prejudice about skin color. Like, did they have hobbies? Did they think about anything else other than skin color? Now, that could be the point that Wallace Thurman was making. And so again, I think this novel probably spoke to a lot of people when it was published and probably speaks to a lot of people today. But for me, it fell totally flat because it was just a one-note novel. And so much of it was just exposition. When he did pause the sociological critique long enough to create a scene, I think it happened twice in this novel, he could actually write scenes well. But he was so busy, and then she went here, and then she went there, and then this person didn't like her dark skin and said this mean thing. And I did feel compassion about the discrimination that she endured, but I wanted more about other stuff. She was not well-rounded. This novel didn't go beneath the skin, so I didn't like it. So those are the ones I've read. I have bailed on one. You won't be surprised, because I was sounding pretty negative about it last week, and that was the collected poems of County Colin. To reiterate what I said in my Goodreads review, I am constitutionally incapable of taking rhymed poetry seriously. All I hear are the rhymes. I'm unable to focus on the words. There is this significant criticism of County Colin's works in that he aped classic poetry from England and didn't ever really write out of a African-American literary tradition. I don't know. I don't have an opinion on that, but it would have been better poetry if he had, I think. I just hate poetry that rhymes. It's not relatable. It's just... So, no. I read about 20% and found myself swaying to the music of the rhymes, but nothing stuck. Alright, so only one bail though. Hey, aside from the Ishiguro story, which I started and finished this week, I have started one other book, and that was The Replacement. Some wonderful, relatable, important poetry. Don't Call Us Dead by Jonahs Smith. I read his earlier one, Black Movie, and really, really liked it. And so far I am completely blown away by Don't Call Us Dead. It's been raved about on BookTube by Eric Carl Anderson and several others, I believe. There's a lot of his performance videos on YouTube. He is amazing, and this is poetry I can sink my teeth into. Really powerful, moving, political, fiery stuff. Just wonderful. In the coming days, I will be starting 2 more books, and that's it, I think, for me for Black History Month. Another group buddy read among a bunch of booktubers will be starting on Sunday, I think, The Known World by Edward P. Jones. I have wanted to read this book since it was published, and that's like 15 years ago or something. It's about slave-owning free African Americans. Sounds fascinating. So this is a big buddy read. It's going to be with Justin of Ghost Reader, Doris of Aldi Books, Sonia of An Enthusiastic Reader, my first buddy read with her, Elba of Seriella, my first buddy read with her, Karen of Run Right Reads, and maybe Musical Taddy. Oh, that's going to be fabulous. That starts Sunday. Possibly this Sunday, but if not, within the next week or so, I will be starting this tome as a buddy read with Britta of Britta Bowler. Kia Corthron's The Castle Cross the Magnet Carter, an 800-page novel published a couple years ago with an African-American historical theme, 20th century historical theme. I, again, have been dying to get to it, and Britta and I are taking it on. This will not be something that I finish by the end of February. This will be a 6-week buddy read, so it will be part of what I will be doing for the March of the Mammoths. So, all in all, not bad, hey? How about you? Thanks for watching.